Hey, what is up, mortals? It is Sam Gabriel here, and welcome to What If Deku Could Manipulate Gravity, Part 2. Just wanted to greet you guys by just saying sit back and relax, you're in for a treat, so we begin. Hell yeah! Bakugo cheered as his score in the standing long jump was higher than Izuku's. Even if Aizawa had specifically told them that this wasn't a game, the two competitive spirits just couldn't help but go against each other. The others thought their homeroom teacher would complain and expel them on the spot, but the man didn't actually care. Also considering this mindset was what pushed them to do their very best, he was rather impressed with the results. Both quirks were not suited for his physical exams, yet the rowdy duo had managed to somehow incorporate their talents into the problems at hand. However, it was evident that Bakugo was pulling ahead ever so slightly. "You better catch up with me here, Planetoid, or I'll win twice in a row!" Their ridiculous momentum had been carried all the way to the end, where Bakugo sat with his 705.2 meters from the demonstration. He was given the chance to go again, but refused as he waited for the other results. He wasn't really expecting much until a certain brunette got infinity as a score. Huh? Izuku noted that the girl's quirk was zero gravity when an idea popped into his mind. A mischievous smirk was pulled across his freckled cheeks, and when it was his turn, he decided to go with his impromptu decision. The greenette had never really thought about it before, and after brief consideration, the boy decided he had always done it subconsciously. By it, Izuku meant how much he increased or decreased gravity. If that's the case, then... Decrease. Holding the ball tightly in his hand, Izuku decreased the gravity of the object like he normally would, but instead of just going with it, he clutched it tighter. Decrease. His hands were warming up as the ball's weight shrank and the greenette grit his teeth. Since his quirk depleted his water levels, Izuku was the opposite of Bakugo in the sense that the freckled one didn't sweat. However, that just meant Izuku slowly got more and more dehydrated, while his internal temperature flared up. It was a definite pain whenever he got close to fainting levels, but luckily his training had greatly balanced out the fluctuations. Decrease! Although after doing his best relentlessly, he was only able to decrease the gravity 3 times before he felt a little lightheaded. Oi, Planetoid, what's taking you so long? Izuku stuck his tongue out as he held a throwing position. The ball's weight wasn't 0, but compared to the original 150 grams, the object felt just a bit heavier than a brand new pencil, which the boy's trivia knowledge knew was about 7 grams. I'll work out the specifics later. For now, he reeled his arm back as far as it would go. I said it's Gravitoid! The ball, with its same mass and different weight, slowly flew through the air as if Izuku had thrown the object in space. It just kept going up and up before making a gently sweeping curve and slowly coming down. 156.3 meters. Woo! Izuku cheered as he got a higher score than the blonde, but their match wasn't over yet. It would all be determined in the final scores. I don't have the time to go over individual scores, so I'll... Come on! Aizawa paused to look at the 2 impatient kids, and they really did remind him of a certain impatient hero. Damn it, they're annoying, but they have potential. He pressed his phone to show the results, and immediately reactions broke out. Bakugo let off an explosive cheer as he beat Izuku once again, because he had just done better overall. Gravity couldn't help a 50-meter dash, and it was the only reason he pulled ahead. I'll win next time, Kat-chan. Not if I win! The noise was already annoying enough for the homeroom teacher, and to make it worse, the boy with sticky balls for hair started crying, begging and pleading with tears running down his face. Spluttering words for mercy were choked out, but ultimately it was all in vain. His sight could only be described as pitiful as Aizawa told him he was expelled. That was that. He was gone. With the kid, named Miru Mineta, gone from the class, it left a rather dismal atmosphere. Not because the tiny one was particularly important in any way, but because Eraserhead's words could no longer be taken lightly. The one especially affected was a girl called Momo Yaoyorozu, as she had believed his words were only a logical ruse to inspire their motivation. And you? Aizawa pointed at Toru Hagakure. The floating gym kid immediately quietened down as he glared at her. You barely made it to 19th. You have 1 chance tomorrow or you're getting expelled too. The homeroom teacher then faced his class. As I said earlier, natural disasters are not fair. Villains are not fair. The world is cruelly unjust. If you don't have potential, then you are expelled. You will only be a problem on the battlefield. Glancing at the two biggest troublemakers, they were two of the three that had remained completely unaffected by his threat. In fact, they seemed excited. The tired man just sighed. And if I see that you do have what it takes, it's my job to whip you into shape. Do your best. Plus ultra. Izuku squealed plus ultra under his breath as he and the rest of the class headed back. Since they seemed too tense to socialize, the Greenette resorted to chatter with Bakugo. It took me a while, but I saw Sensei's goggles. And? He's a racerhead. The underground hero. Seriously? I thought he was just some random homeless man. Nah, Kacchan, you know UA only hires heroes as teachers. But yeah, his quirk is to erase other quirks when he looks at you. And he's really good at one-on-ones. Huh, I have to fight him. Kacchan, no. Kacchan, yes! The rest of the day went by as peacefully as one would expect from a normal high school, and before long, Izuku was heading back beside Bakugo. Hey, wait up! The two turned to see the brunette who never managed to say her name, accompanied by Tenya Ida, the one who picked a fight first thing in the morning about manners. Already got a girlfriend, Planetoid? That was quick. The girl blushed a little before introducing herself as Ochako Uraraka, and was finally able to get her thanks through. No worries, we are planning to be heroes after all. Bakugo scoffed, but agreed in his own way before turning to the brunette. Also, Pink Cheeks, careful with Planetoid. Izuku made an offended gasp as the blonde explained their previous social life. He's been breaking hearts by accident since our middle school's second year. Kacchan, that's not true. Really? Then explain the letters in your locker. Okay, fine. But honestly, most of the girls came to me because Kacchan was the popular one. Well, then let's just say your social skills aren't the best. Huh? What do you mean not the best? You want to fight, Planetoid? The duo once again started to argue with each other, completely ignoring the two behind them. Their pace started to increase as they started to competitively walk when Izuku turned around. We're running home. It was all he could get out as Bakugo bolted down the street. He immediately gave chase, and with a yell of, "It's Gravitoid!" shrinking into the distance, they were gone. See, you... tomorrow? Uraraka didn't know what to say to the person who just basically disappeared. She found herself waving into empty space before turning to Ida. At least I got my thanks out. The next day, the morning was in full swing after All Might waltzed into the classroom like a normal person. It caused ruckus in the class as they realized the number one was their heroics teacher and would be the one to give them their first taste as heroes. Izuku once again raced Bakugo into who could change the fastest, and the Greenette easily won this time, considering his hero suit was rather simple. The effect of gravity manipulation was that not only did Izuku feel dehydrated and, in extreme cases, lightheaded, but his body would also increase in temperature. Training had pretty much resolved the fluctuating levels, but he did have 2 hidden pockets just in case he needed to carry water. As for his other problem, Izuku just did research on astronauts and the military who worked in hot regions. The result of his hard work was that everything about Izuku's hero outfit was directed to temperature regulation. The slightly baggy trousers he wore were made of 2 specific parts, a gel layer where heat could easily pass, and a thin heat-resistant layer. There were also 2 light, built-in fans on his sides, for if he needed to tragically change his course of direction mid-air. His buckled-on tank top was made in a similar fashion with the 2 layers, except there was also padding. The material was similar to the ones used in plane windows, because just like how they could keep the cold, high-altitude air out, they could also keep the cold temperatures in. This was not mentioning their durability to imitate a weaker version of a bulletproof vest. The Greenette decided to keep his sides bare for the time being, as he also didn't want to chill his body completely. After all, he didn't want to be slowed down in any way. His iron shoes were made of reeds on the inside, as they were known to transfer heat out the best. They also had double recoil in the soles, so he could jump higher. Izuku figured that if there was no building to look down at people on, he would just jump up. There were red straps on both his waist and shins, but those were actually emergency cooling pads that could be activated when they reached a certain temperature. Either way, that meant Izuku literally needed 3 movements to put on everything as Bakugo meticulously strapped his sweat-collecting gloves on before attaching the huge grenade shells to his arms. The blonde had no choice but to accept the mini defeat, as he was still strapping mini grenades to himself, while the freckled boy chilled around fiddling with a certain orange and black spiky mask. "Gimme that!" Bakugo snatched his mask back and tied it on as Izuku giggled his green locks into a happy bounce. You got something to say? Oh, nothing. Spit it out! Oh no, you're just so handsome, Kanchan. Izuku's giggling and outright sarcasm made Bakugo's hands spark up, and the freckled boy immediately reacted, palms open and ready to clench. You want to go, ugly ass? Hell yeah, I want to go, you giant yellow dahlia. You broccoli brains! A boy with red hair stepped in with a wry grin before anything could escalate, and the two calmed down. Izuku apologized to the boy before almost growling at Bakugo, who walked off without a word. Ejido Kirishima was his name, and he told the Greenette not to worry before they all headed into the waiting room. In 10 minutes, the hero-villain simulation was explained, and partners were assigned. They next drew lots, and it was Team A versus D. Oh, you're going down, Planetoid. Bakugo grinned menacingly, and Izuku returned the smirk. And I plan to beat the name Gravitoid into your skull. Sparks were literally flying between the two as Ida's robotic arms signaled the blonde that they were starting. Uraraka nervously chuckled as they left, and it left the two to strategize. So what should we... I'm fighting Kacchan. Huh? Izuku explained how Bakugo was going to ditch Ida within seconds, and there was no point if she waited around for their fight to be over. Scale the building. If Ida's alone, then he'll probably clear the room as he knows you'll be coming. Go in through the window or something and try and secure the win. Uraraka had no time to say anything else as the starting buzzer went off and Izuku ran off. She was hesitating but decided to go along with the Greenette's plan. Planetoid! Bakugo ran straight for his best friend while his hands were outstretched with killing intent. Izuku greeted the blonde with his own outstretched hands. Gravitoid! The raging bomb staggered as his knees bent from the weight. It didn't stop him, however, as he went in for a right hook. The Greenette ducked and pushed the grenade, increasing gravity at the blonde's center of mass so he fell to the floor. Exploding hands spun the body around so the metal knee pads aimed for freckled cheeks. The iron soles bounced and ricocheted the Greenette toward the ceiling in a near miss as Bakugo righted himself. Orange light sparked out of the open palms, and Izuku jumped from wall to wall as he dodged the frantic but accurately aimed explosions. By doing so, distance was created between the two, shifting the side of attack to Izuku. The Greenette obviously didn't hesitate at the chance, as he set multiple small invisible spheres of space with different gravity pulls. Bakugo didn't move, however, and held up an arm. Oi, you know how I used to struggle against you in long-distance fights? Izuku already knew that this meant his best friend had finally found a solution, but unfortunately for the Greenette, he didn't know what it was. Of course, he had a few ideas, but they were all a bit vague. These gauntlets have been storing the sweat I can't get to my palms, so if I hold it up like this... They were in a corridor. There were no windows to aim for. Bakugo was on one side and the gravity manipulator was in the middle. If Bakugo pulled the grenade's pin, Izuku was going to die. Sir, aren't they taking this too far? Kirishima asked the teacher, who wasn't sure what to do. Under normal circumstances, he would stop the match immediately, yet from what he had seen, All Might knew Bakugo looked out for Izuku more than anyone else. It was evident as the blonde put his friend's well-being over everything, even the number one hero's presence after the sludge villain attack. They don't hold back out of respect, but also trust that neither would go so far as to actually kill the other in a fight. A strange but powerful balance that could only be held by true rivals. You better not die, Planetoid! A colossal tower of flames erupted from Bakugo's arms, and the blast ripped through the corridor straight at Izuku. The Greenette had 10 seconds to figure something out, and it just so happened that the freckled boy had been holding something back too. Damn, so I wasn't the only one who had new ideas. Immediately getting onto the floor, the two hands slammed the ground, and the air around the younger one's body distorted heavily. As the flames hit the child, Bakugo watched in amusement as the explosion was redirected up and around Izuku, so that the ceiling ended up freshly charred. Well shit, what was that? Izuku grinned as he stuck his tongue out. If you didn't try to kill me, I could have told you. The freckled boy went into a discussion about how he figured that increasing gravity actually had a lot of potential, as he could change it in different directions. Decreasing tended to be more helpful in his ability to maneuver easily, and now he figured that increase could be used for not only offense, but for defense. I only started testing it last night, you know. What would you have done if I died? Bakugo shrugged. But you didn't. Izuku couldn't argue with that, and he was honestly more annoyed that he couldn't perfect his new idea before it came out. The two chattered a bit more when All Might's voice rang out, causing the Greenette to jump a little. Uraraka has successfully touched the weapon. The hero team wins! Crap, I totally forgot about the training. Shit, same. The two boys awkwardly looked at each other, not knowing what to do when Izuku realized something. Wait, so Uraraka and I won? Bakugo also registered that fact and immediately went on rampage mode. I refuse to lose! Izuku immediately ran off with a grin on his face to meet up with Uraraka, who was with Ida. As Izuku predicted, the brunette had spotted Ida monologuing to himself in a spotless room when an idea struck her. Picking up a few stones from the ground below, she floated into the building before placing the pebbles midair down the corridor leading to the weapons room. With each one closer to the target being higher off the ground, the space girl was ready. Creeping back to the window, she released her quirk on the stone closest to the ground at the end of the corridor, and it clattered down. It was quickly followed by another and another, as Uraraka floated herself outside again. Creeping close, she saw that Ida was faced toward the noise of rocks coming closer and closer at the entrance of the room. The second the one closest to the room fell, the robotic hero in training rushed forward, and Uraraka jumped aside. Release! She landed on the dummy bomb, and just like that, secured the win. The brunette's actions caused her to be the MVP of the match, as Ida was told not just to react to one factor alone. Izuku and Bakugo didn't even try to protest, as they both basically ignored the whole training. Not only did they both just leave their partners to duke it out with each other, at the end of their fight they just chatted and forgot about the problem at hand. Lighthearted laughter broke out because of their actions, and the two had no choice but to take it. It would have been nice if everything ended in fun and games. However, the hero's life, in Mr. Aizawa's words, was harsh and unfair. As Sakakure was told, she was given an extra test to prove her worth at UA, and that was to show potential in today's fight. The problem came when the lots were drawn, however, as luck was not on her side. Her opponents were Meizo Shoji and Shoto Todoroki. The son of the number 2 hero allowed the girl no time to do anything, as in a blink of an eye, the whole building was frozen. Well, damn. I want to fight him. Hagakure was invisible, but apart from that, she was essentially just a naked girl who knew how to be quiet. Unfortunately for her, she was expelled. It had been 3 days since school started, and the class was already down to 18 students. The atmosphere was dismal and unpleasant, as half the children worried if they were next. How are you guys so chill? Kirishima questioned Izuku, who was mumbling into nothing about his classmates' quirks. Bakugo was just resting his eyes, but opened them to see the newcomer. What do you mean? The brunette didn't understand the question, as 2 more worried students joined the conversation. Yeah, you two are acting like nothing happened. How do you two have the confidence, man? I'm so scared my yay mode would kick my ticket to being a hero. The 2 newcomers were Mina Ashido and Denki Kaminari. Although the former was doing well to hide her worries, she was still on edge. The electric ladder, however, was openly freaking out. Izuku trailed off as he tried to describe why he wasn't worried, and Bakugo answered for him. 'Cause the teacher's a pro. The 3 looked at Bakugo in confusion, and the brunette nodded. Yeah, that's it, but Kanchan, you need to explain things better. Huh? It's not my fault these extras don't get it. Yeah, you keep telling yourself that, Mr. No Social Skills. Anyway, with Bakugo complaining in the background, Izuku smiled as if the angry blondes didn't exist. As Kanchan horribly said, it's because Sensei's a pro. The things he tells us are straightforward and honest, because when in the real world, orders will be thrown at you like that. Mina nodded first as she understood. After all, information had to be simple, as time was of the essence. But likewise, it also means you have to figure some of it out yourself. Kirishima was starting to understand too as the brunette continued. So if we go over his words, if you don't have potential then you are expelled, you will only be a problem on the battlefield. They nodded, and Izuku went over how their teacher's words were not only harsh and honest, but kind. How? Denki was puzzled, and Izuku smiled. Well, would you rather someone hated you, or liked you at the cost of their life? Messing up in hero's work is a threat to yourself. If you're too heavily injured to keep going, then even normal jobs become unavailable. The 3 understood where Izuku was coming from. If they had no potential, then expulsion, while they had the chance to choose their paths, was the kindest thing their teacher could do. And besides, Sir said that if he saw we had what it takes, he would do his best to make sure we succeed. The atmosphere in the room lifted as Izuku spoke purposefully loud so others could hear him. Worries were no longer as bad as earlier, and it was just in time, too, as the morning bell went off. The children returned to their seats and patiently waited for their teacher, who walked in with his sleeping bag. Good, you're all seated. I have an announcement. The class was silent, as the most worried of the bunch feared it was another test, but luckily for them, it was nothing of the sort. You need to choose a class representative and a deputy head, too. Thank God it's a normal thing, Denki cheered as he took Izuku's words to heart. If he did his best, then there was nothing to worry about. Many in the class found themselves thinking that way, so when Momo and Ida finished collecting the votes, the Greenette found himself in first place by a long shot. Well, damn, okay. Izuku stood at the front of the class with 11 votes, along with Bakugo, who had 3. I'm not complaining since I beat Kacchan, but I don't really remember what I did. His offhand comment made Bakugo flare up, and the class's atmosphere became a lighthearted chuckle. No one complained about the result, and it seemed everyone was happy. It was a little late, but on the third day of their high school experience, it seemed like the students got their first taste of a normal school. Well, that was until lunchtime, when the intruder alarm went off. Thank you all for sticking around, and I hope that you enjoyed. Before you leave, we would just like to let you know that We the Celestials has many other channels for your entertainment and viewing purposes. All the information you'll need is right below here in the description, so feel free to check out all the other incredible projects our team creates. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. That's all for today's video, so goodbye and have a divine day.